Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before we begin, I would like to remind everyone to please shut off all cell phones. Welcome to the May 20th, 2025 public hearing of the Bayonne Rent Control Board. Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Okay. Here we go. Sorry. At this time, I'd like to ask Jacqueline Farber to do the roll call.
Board Member Clapsey?
Present.
Board Member Chatham Nichols?
Present.
Board Member Prieto?
Present.
Board Member Burgos is absent. And Board Member Siciliano, absent. You may proceed.
The Rent Board complies with the Sunshine Law of the State of New Jersey. Notice of this evening's meeting has been filed, with the city clerk. And notice has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Tonight, the Court of Stenographer is not present. However, the meeting is being recorded. The addresses to be read for a mass vote are those applications that the board members have reviewed individually without discussion and have found to be the subject of the requested action and in compliance with the rent control ordinance's requirements. If for some reason anyone has a question or a problem with one of these applications, when the address is read, simply raise your hand and the address will be stricken from the mass vote and heard separately. Please listen carefully for your address. No application will be heard once board members have voted and the public hearing is closed. Individual rental unit improvement, 866 to 868 Broadway, Hudson 868 Broadway Realty, LLC.
Based on a matter, there was discrepancy on the application. I made corrections, so I'm going to hand everybody the current rent, what would be, and what the changes I made. Landlord submitted the application, he didn't submit the rent increase on the individual. I did speak to the tenant, so she was a little confused. So I explained to her is that it was discrepancy on my end to make sure that there was a rent increase. So I made the changes, and the amount is kind of the same, I think a little bit less, and I think by 4 cents.
Yeah, I'm looking, so just for the board's information, like, the application as it came in, listed the rent at $116.77, the current base rent. And then the surcharge would be $43.11, and it reported to go to $1,159.88. But in the revised one that, we just got from Jackie, the current base rent is $1,163.67, and it's on page 2, and then the surcharge is $43.08, and the new rent will be $1,206.75. So that would be the non-correct total.
I also explained to the tenants that when the time comes of the resolution, she'll get an updated application with the corrections that I made.
And just for the board's knowledge, like that's generally the process anyway, but generally the board office does review it and tell the tenant, what the problem is. And so if everyone agrees with Jackie's assessment, which I think we should, then we can vote on that. Is there any questions?
Motion to approve this application?
Second.
Going to take a roll call. Board Member Clapsy?
Approved.
Board Member Chatham Nichols?
Approve.
Board Member Prieto?
Approved.
Board Member Burgos is absent, and so is Board Member Siciliano. Application moved.
Yeah. Next is the resolution, I'm sorry, 824 Avenue C. Wanda Cadita, am I pronouncing that correctly? Alonso, okay, I'm sorry. Belgrove, 820-824 Avenue C, LLC.
Yeah, and let me just by way of background for, I know the board's aware of this, obviously, but just to the public, that, this was a application that was on last month, or the last meeting we had in March, and the board determined that, in fact, this tenant was, currently a rent control tenant that should not have been decontrolled, for the reasons that are set forth in the application, in the resolution, that essentially that, the vacancy decontrol was just incorrect. She didn't voluntarily vacate the apartment. Therefore, the board determined that because of that, her rent should have been in accord with the standards of the rent control office. And at the time, we didn't know what the CPI increases would have been that the landlord would have been entitled to, had she been properly rent controlled, and assuming that he applied for the annual CPI increase. And we didn't know what the base rent would have, well, we knew what the base rent might have been, with the look back period, it would have been $1,300. So we put that on hold with the thought that Jackie would go back and figure out, starting with the base rent of $1,300, going back to 18 months, because she paid the rent, what would the CPI increase be for those, the next 2 years? So that's what Jackie determined, and those are the numbers in the resolution according to what the board suggested. So again, like what the resolution does is it gives the tenant the benefit of the benefit of rent control, as soon as she has always been a rent control tenant. Since the statute of limitations for filing a complaint for a rent increase under the applicable ordinance is 18 months, whatever amount the tenant has paid 18 months prior to the first complaint they make about the rent is deemed to be agreed. So 18 months before her November rent, or her November application, November 4th, 2024 was the application date. 18 months before that is May 3rd, and May 4th of 2023. So the rent they paid, they were deemed to agree to the amount of rent they had been paying May 3rd, 2023, which is $1,300. And so then we moved that up a year. Jackie figured out the CPI increase that the landlord would have been entitled to, because that's only fair if you're giving the tenant the benefit of the argument. You have to assume that the landlord, having known that she was rent controlled, would have applied for the annual increase to which they were entitled. And 2.9% would have been that. So we gave the tenant the benefit of we gave the landlord the benefit of the rent increase in May of 2024. Then moving it forward another year, the CPI increase the landlord would have been allowed, would have been 3.8% based on the rent that would have been allowable for May of 2024. And that would bring the allowable base rent to $1,388.53 nothing, because we're now setting rent as of the date of the resolution, there are other triggers in the rent control ordinance for relief by landlords and tenants based on a myriad of things. So we also said that should something come up that entitles either one of them to a rent, a change or a complaint or an application after today, you're welcome to do that with this understanding. So that's just a summary of that resolution. Do you want to move, second?
Who would like
Make
to
a-
move this application?
I'll make a motion to move it.
I'll second it.
Okay, I'm going to take a roll call. Board Member Clapsey?
Approve.
Board Member Chatham Nichols?
Approve.
Board Member Prieto?
Approved.
Board Member Burgos absent, and Board Member Tina Siciliano absent. Resolution approved. Anybody want to say anything?
Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second it.
Roll call for meeting adjourned. Clapsey? Board Member Clapsey? Board Member Chatham Nichols?
Approve.
Board Member Prieto?
Approved.
Member Burgos and Board Member Siciliano are absent. Adjourned 7:18.